Welcome everybody to our usual Thursday morning slot of Overberg Geoscientists. And today we have the pleasure of our presenter being Graham Gavine, who's been here before. And I have the fortune of having worked with Graham in the 70s, 80s, when I met him at Hardebeesfontein Gold Mine. We were both geologists on the mine for Anglo-Vaal. Graham's education started as a geologist when he went to university up Natal, where he finished in 1976, and then he subsequently did his honors in 1979 at the University of Cape Town. His technical experience includes 43 years of exploration, mining, target generation, business development, experience in Wits gold, Archean, Greenstone gold, Bushveld, PGM and chrome, geothermal energy, Otavi mountainland, lead, zinc, vanadium, Damaraland belt minerals, and he's a highly experienced core logger, experienced in setting up databases for core logging, sampling, and analytical data. Now, he stayed with, most of his life, he was with Anglo-Vaal, eventually moved to one of the other two big companies, and in the early 2000s, and then he started many projects as well as startup companies. And today he's the guy that who's going to talk to us about the Greenstone deposits and potential at Barberton Islands. Carry on, Graham.
Right, good morning. This morning's talk is Barberton Greenstone Gold Deposits Unrealized Potential. The original talk was going to be Barberton Greenstone Gold Deposits and other gold settings, potentially small mines, but in view of the vast potential other settings that could be discussed, it's been decided. I decided to reduce it just to Barberton gold deposits and to look at basically the history of small mines in the Barberton area, company histories, geological setting, just a brief overview, as I'm sure many people are aware and are familiar with Barberton Greenstone belt geology. I want to focus on Pan-African resources. I want to look at, again, small mines, mining houses, why small mines never really got off the ground in South Africa, and I think previous dispensations of the setup and how mining houses operated, I think meant that many mining houses focused rather on large mines. And then just the last piece here, I just want to touch on exploration and what's been done, what is the potential, and other factors that basically at this stage are obstacles in getting going in the Barberton area, obviously problems with the DMRE, etc. Okay, just an overview, just so I can focus people more clearly on Barberton. It's the site of the only continuously operating small gold mines in South Africa. The gold mines there, well, 4 gold mines have been operating basically since the 19th century. And I'm going to be parochial here, and I believe the Barberton Greenstone belt must be the premier gold greenstone belt on Earth. The mines there that go back to 1884. The potential of the Barberton terrain hosting these mines prospects is obvious. And again, the big question is, why was there, is there no development of new mines? Barberton, Barbrook was one that didn't seem to, didn't last very long. The gold price of $800 an ounce back in 1980, which was 41 years ago, led to a period of major exploration, not only in the Wits, but in Barberton as well. And when one goes through the records, there was significant production of gold from prospect small mines that were located in the Barberton area and also in the brownfield areas of producing mines. And I think one of the most critical parts of the Barberton Greenstone belt, there's not only a lot of records of production and the settings of individual mines, but there's a lot of abundant geological literature for people who have researched the evolution of the Archean crust and the Greenstone belt in Barberton. And again, the important thing is the setting of the gold mineralization is well understood. And just to focus on my comments there, I pulled these figures out, and they're by no means comprehensive, from Ian Ward's memoir from the Council of Geoscience, who was published in 1999. And although you can see down here the main mines, Sheba, Consort, Fairview, significant gold production. But if you look up here where limited mining has taken place, Clutha, Montrose, these are not insignificant production figures. And again, it points the way that there is gold there, but mining companies, the old mining houses, didn't see their way clear to establish new mines. So, okay, photograph looking down on Sheba Gold Mine, synonymous with small-scale greenstone belt, greenstone belt mines. And as I repeat here, the Barberton Greenstone belt has been the focus of major research programs. And the second point there is that there's considerable technical data tied up by companies. Obviously, a lot of it confidential, but yeah, it could assist if some of these companies would release it, but I doubt that that will happen. And again, I repeat, highly prospective terrain. So, okay, just to set out the geological overview here. This is from the Geology of South Africa, published in 2006. It shows a broad outline of the Kaapvaal Craton as it is known today. And in the darker color here, we can see all the greenstone belts. My focus today, as I said, is on Barberton. You've got the Murchison, you've got the Gavine Sutherland, you've got the Petersburg, and then there's other lesser greenstone belts out to the west. So, as I mentioned, this is the prime objective of today's talk. The geology of the Barberton mountain land has been very well documented, and I'm pretty certain that most of the listeners here will understand the geological setting. Town of Barberton there, and these are the current mines that are in production at the moment. That's New Consort, Sheba, Fairview. That, well, is Agnes, but has now been renamed Galaxy Gold Mine by their holding company, Galani Gold. Let me just move on to the next slide here. The stratigraphy, I think, has been well documented. I think this is a fairly old stratigraph, columns correlated. At the bottom here is the Onverwacht, primarily basic mafic, ultramafic lavas, overlain by the fig tree, sediments, grey wacky shale, chert, and then the uppermost part of the sequence is the Moody's group, some grey wacky, some quartzites, and as I say, fairly well documented. Satellite image here, we can see where Fairview mine is. This arcuate structure here is a later stage deformation of the original Eureka syncline and Lundi anticlinorum. We can see they've indicated here one of the faults. The Sheba fault comes through here, so there's this critical interplay between the anticlines, pathologies, and thrust and normal faulting. The road out from Barberton through to Kaap Maiden indicated here. Sheba mine sitting off here in the east, and then New Consort mine there, and then the Jamestown schist belt extends out from the main Barberton mountain land area going off in a northwesterly direction. In terms of location, Barberton sitting there, Fairview Mine, Sheba Mine, New Consort, and then this is just roughly put in with a lack of detail, the Lily Mine, and then just southeast of it, the Barbrook Mine, and then southwest of Barberton, we have the Agnes Galaxy Mine. I'll deal with the history a bit later. When one looks at the distribution of gold occurrences in the Barberton area, there's a lot of gold occurrences in a very limited area here. This is taken from Ward. And when one puts this together against some geological features, indicated in here are quite a lot of sort of old prospects, old mines, Clutha, the famous golden quarry, which was a major source of gold during the initial days. And when you plot or you compare where most of the gold prospects are, they all occur in this general area here. There again is Fairview, Sheba sitting out there, so Fairview sitting somewhere there, Sheba there, and then in this area you've got the Consort Mine. I must repeat again that the geology is well understood. It's been mapped in detail, and this must surely provide enough encouragement for companies to relook at Barberton. This is an interesting map that I pulled out from Ward, and he adapted it from Carl Anheuser. It shows the relationship of gold production. The black is more than 1,500 kilograms, and then the lighter color less than 1,500 kilograms. And you can see very clearly there, Fairview, Sheba, Agnes down there, Consort, and the comment here is the juxtaposition of these northwest, southeast dike swarms, which indicate the principal stress direction, and the mineralized shears and thrusts, which combine to form the locus of where the gold has been deposited. So, okay, let's look at briefly the summary. Auguste Robert, French mob, discovers gold, the Pioneer Reef. This drew in a lot of prospectors. This is just before the Wits Basin is discovered. In 1895, Edwin Bray discovers the Golden Quarry, which is now within the greater Sheba Mine lease. The accounts of that time indicate that there was basically gold covering rocks in that area. Must have been be interesting to know what sort of grade these things were being mined at. So in 1886, the real gold rush starts, and most of the free gold quartz vein deposits and oxidized free gold outcrops of refractory gold sulfide bodies are discovered, and the mining is concentrated on those. And over time, these prospecting discoveries were incorporated into the mines that were being developed, New Consort, Agnes, and Fairview, plus Sheba. And then just to draw attention that further east, the first gold deposits were exploited in the Barbrook mine area. Okay, just a picture to put everyone in the sort of lie of the land from that same viewpoint. First slide, the northeastern end of Barberton, Fairview mine there, and this is the Jamestown schist belt extending out northwestwards towards Nelspruit, and through here is the road out to Cape Maiden, and somewhere in that area is Consort Mine. Sheba Mine is sitting to the east, and location not exactly visible from the slide. Okay, the company history is interesting. ET Cons, as we used to call it, Eastern Transvaal Consolidated Mines, obtained the controlling interest in what became their mainstay production mines, Consort, Sheba, and Agnes. This happened between 33 and 49. And then Anglo-Vaal, the old Anglo-Transvaal Consolidated Investment Company, took a controlling interest in ET Cons in 47. In 97, Avgold was formed out of old Anglo-Vaal Gold Assets, and then they bought Fairview Mine in 98. And this gave Avgold Anglo-Vaal access to the GenCore GenGold BIOX metallurgical process, and this enabled ET Cons to close the roaster at Consort, which they used to sort of break down the sulfidic ore so that the gold could be amenable to extraction. What happened after that, Metarex bought ET Cons, Barberton Mines. Metarex didn't hold ET Cons for a while. Pan African Resources then acquired Barberton Mines, and this started a process where the business they were going to be very serious about expanding production and growing their business. Agnes was disposed of by Anglo or Avgold in 1999. It went through quite a few owners. I've not given any detail there. Agnes is now Galaxy Mine and is part of the Gilani Gold Company. Gilani Gold has a gold mining complex up near Francistown in Botswana. And just to focus again, what the metal of interest in this is gold from a sample from Sheba Gold Mine. I believe there have been exceptional finds of visible gold developed to the degree that this sample indicates. Okay, 1980s, major gold exploration. At ET Cons, Anglo-Vaal had an extensive exploration portfolio. There were a lot of prospects, a lot of work was done. The only development there was the Princeton section at Agnes Mine. It was brought into production. It had a limited life. I cannot find any detail of basically what happened there. And Anglo was also very involved, more to the southwest of the Barberton Greenstone belt. And then Barbrook was a joint venture between Rand Mines and Anglo. So to look at this period, as I say, there were a lot of companies exploring. A lot of them were brownfield prospects, in many instances close proximity to existing mines. There were a lot of geologists working there, and it was an era of intense interest by the geologists, not only in their work, but in understanding the geology of the Greenstone Belt. And as I say, there's a lot of data available, a lot of research. Yet in that period, and this extends into the 90s, that there was 4 mines brought into production. Princeton, Lily, Barbrook are all closed now. There was another mine, Macondron, which is an open cast. I'm not sure why it was closed. Maybe it was mined out. Yet 4 mines from the 19th century, Sheba, Consort, Fairview, are still in production, and Agnes Galaxy is coming into production. And one wonders why this has happened. As I say, in my view, is that maybe it was easier for the geologists to explore from existing infrastructure and bring these new reefs into production. And I think also geology on a greenstone mine, gold mine, is certainly challenging and rewarding. Most of my colleagues from that era were very happy with working on these mines. So, okay, there was a big transition, and perhaps going to jump a bit ahead here. I cannot find any production available for ET Cons, so we can't judge performance. ET Cons appear to fit into Anglo-Vaal as a mining house, and this was a bit of an anomaly. Again, Princeton was brought into production, again, closed. I'm not sure of the reason or the setting, but I think there was a big changed when Pan African Resources acquired the Barberton mines. One gets the impression, in fact, I think this is backed up by data, there was an improved operating performance. I was part of a team that reassessed historic data, put it in electronic phase, it was put into GIS, reinterpretation, target generation. And from the latest Pan African Resources mineral resource reserve statement, there are plans to bring in a satellite ore body into the Sheba production cycle. So I think if one looks at Pan African Resources, I think it's a very definite model that counts for their success. They've got small mines, they're a focused company on Barberton and on Greenstone Gold. They have some interests in Evander, but I don't think there's much production coming out of that. As I say, it's primarily Barberton, and I think there's synergies there, shared services, infrastructure, brownfield prospects close to existing operations. And one wonders, you know, the change from just operating mines to one where Pan African Resources is obviously set out to grow their business, and there's obviously a very, very different mindset with Pan African Resources when compared with the old days of ET Cons. When one looks at Pan African Resources, fairly significant production there in the order of 340,000 tons ore milled. The grades there are, when one looks at Sheba and Fairview, relatively higher grade. Consort, as far as I know, was always operating at a slightly lower grade than the other two mines. You know, you can see the annual production in ounces. While Fairview has got a long life, these two are indicated as having 9 and 8 years. But as I understand, there's always ongoing exploration. And I'm sure that as each year goes by, there's always 9 or 10 years life of mine left. Okay, a summary from the from Pan African Resources mineral resource and ore reserve statement. We can see here that for small operations, significant resource there. Again, the grades indicated at, well, not only Consort, at a lot higher than what they're producing. And this is significant resource in terms of tons and tons of gold. The ore reserves, I think, are pretty realistic for small mines operating, you know, with moderate tonnages each month, probably what, 12, 15, 18,000 tons. And as I'm aware, exploration on the mines is ongoing to continually include ground that can be converted, or reefs that can be converted into resources. I just took this out because it's an image from their statement. Just the annual report. I just want to note there the number of people working in Barberton mines, and there's a point I just want to elaborate on a little bit later. Production basically 340,000 tons, or gold produced 68,000 tons of gold, sorry, 68,000 ounces. So, okay, the point I want to make here is that when one looks at these small mines, and I think the bulk of the financial figures here primarily referred to Barberton, the revenue, $273 million. I think it's interesting to notice the money that's spent on goods and services and the knock-on effect of mines producing and buying from companies in the broader economy, I think is significant. And when one looks at the employee remuneration, the sum of money there that's been paid to 22,500 employees is significant as well. People taking home money and spending money into the broader economy. Okay, tax down here, $16.1 million. Okay, even the government benefits. So let's just look briefly at the geology here. Onverwacht group, banded chert. They indicate surface outcrop of some of these and where the fractures are, because a lot of these ore bodies are located on fractures or on thrust or shear planes. Fairview here to the west, the greater Sheba over here, and then of course the world-renowned golden quarry, and then the bounding feature here is the Sheba fault. This is a very simple diagram that was published some years ago in an excursion guidebook. It shows some fairly complex geology that indicate there the, the Eureka syncline and the location of the loci of the various reefs that have been exploited. And this general area is located between the Moody's group to the west and the Fig Tree group to the east, which is a critical feature for the setting of these gold-bearing fractures and shear zones. The next mine we'll just look at briefly, Agnes, originally operated by E.T. Cons. Production was primarily based on the Giles and Woodbine reefs. My recollection is that it was fairly low grade, and it has a fairly scenic setting there, a waterfall next to the Ben Lomond Adit, which is the main access at this stage. It was sold on by Avgold, passed through a number of owners, and Galani Gold is now the owner. And I just summarized from the Galani Gold Reef's technical report, 8 million tons of resource, 3.4 grams, which tends to confirm that they are relatively low grade, and in the order of 880,000 ounces of gold. This sits out to the southwest of Barberton. The photograph we see there is taken from basically the north side, the main mine workings. It's basically horizontal all the way down to where the main workings are. And this section, briefly there, okay, there's the Moody's fault, and this all is here. The geology is primarily Moody's sediments. A more or less longitudinal section. Quite a number of ore bodies have been exploited, but during the E.T. Cons Anglo-Mole days, it was primarily the Giles and the Woodbine. So, okay, let's just move on here. Is the scale. That is a kilometer. So the workings from the Ben Lomond tunnel are quite considerably long. As I've been down there quite a long time, and just getting from the Ben Lomond portal into the workings. Okay, let's move across to Barbrook Mine. Rand Mine's Anglo-American brownfields exploration. There had been exploitation of some of the ore bodies around there, and I'll show the location there. From the figures indicated here, quite a lot of drilling, not only surface, but a lot of underground drilling, a lot of development. The mine was closed in '92, and the reasons given were it was overcapitalized, the ore was refractory. Not sure why they didn't recognize that earlier. Discontinuous pay shoots, well, that is far as I'm concerned, part of the challenge of working on a Archean gold mine. High working costs, and then obviously this is the 80s into the 90s. There were labor problems, but that's symptomatic of the era. Briefly, this is the summary geological plan. Barbrook Fault, Saddleback Fault. We've got some Zwartkopje formation, And then you have these thrust faults here, and then most of the host rocks around here are fig tree, shales, and greyware. There is some detail in here, the number of prospects, diggings. Some of the sites have been mined, bushbuck, daylight, maid of the mist, French mobs. And if I have to, I'll show a photograph now. This is the infrastructure as it was many years ago, before the mine was closed, the met plant there. And I think it's in this area that Rand Mines developed a major Wits-style haulage that went straight in for several kilometers. But I thought this was a bit of overkill thinking in terms of what development looks like on a small mine. I did have an opportunity of going in there. It was a very long walk, and it looked as if Barbrook was mined. They were tapping into smaller sites where there was the gold mineralization was more prominent. As I say, it is now, or was part of the Eastern / Vantage Goldfields. And Lily Mine, which I'll deal with now, sits somewhere out there. Out here is the road that comes from Barberton through to Kaap Maiden. This area is Lowe's Creek. Okay, Lily Mine was originally held by E.T. Cons. There was limited production. At some point, Eastern Goldfields took it over. They started developing it. At the same time, I think there was still mining going on in Cons 1 open cast. And then, of course, there was that regrettable accident or mine disaster where the crown pillar collapsed. This is what I heard about it. And the mine has been closed since 2016. And Vantage Goldfields, Eastern Goldfields, is now in business rescue. And I mean, it's now 5 odd years. There are legal problems, DMRE problems, problems with the local community. But when one looks at the greater Lily Barbrook area mining complex, at this moment, the opportunities for further mining, there are a lot of brownfield prospects there. I understand that there has been an offer made for these assets, but again, there seems to be legal complications. And then I just make a comment there: opportunity, Pan-African resources model. Whether that will be grasped, I don't know. I think we'll just have to keep an eye out on developments there. Now, I did spend some time at Lily Mine. They were, at that point, they were finishing off the open cast mining. They were trucking ore several kilometers up a mountain to the south where the gold plant was. Obviously, working costs were high. It's a fairly low-grade operation. As I recall, the decline portal for the underground operation was sitting somewhere out here. This was the initial sinkhole, as it were, after the crown pillar collapsed. And this is where, regrettably, the remains of those mine workers are located somewhere down there. And I think this was taken not long after the collapse. And that was a more recent photograph. So as I say, there are a lot of problems to bring that mine back into production. It will probably require a new decline. So, okay, let's just look at the way the mining industry was structured years ago. Maybe it's a bit harsh to say aversion to small mines. The mining house structure at that time was focused on the Wits gold mines. There were a lot of costs from that the head office charged to the mines, administrative, technical, hospital, all that sort of thing, levies to the Chamber of Mines, and these were major cost contributors. And the comment's always been made it was not feasible for small mines to operate within this cost structure. And I think this is what put off mining houses from looking at and opening up small mines. Of course, the exception was E.T. Cons under Anglo Val. As I say, I have no idea, what costs were charged by Anglowaal head office to the ET cons. Again, I make the point there of model, one company, several mines, centralized management. And again, what I think is important, a change in mindset, increased importance of geological input. And I think this is why Pan-African Resources now is such a successful, I think, mid-tier gold mining operation. And I think when one looks at this, my old mineral resources from the Council of Geoscience lists a lot of gold occurrences. There's been exploration over the years, some mines developed. I think there's demonstrated prospectivity in Barberton, there's new technology, ideal terrain, opportunity for junior explorers, infrastructure available. Just to broaden the outlook, there are a lot of other metals and minerals that have been looked at, some mining. So Barberton is not only just a gold bearing terrain. Obstacles, well, the top line, I don't think we need to discuss. I think we all realize what's going on. Same for the second line. One of the issues that I've been dealing with is this World Heritage Site. The extent, we've not been able to find out where the site lies, the extent of it. There's a potential for sterilization. The environmental bureaucracy, pretty tedious and odious when working down in Barberton. And then conflict between provincial and national departments, particularly with water affairs, agriculture and forestry. And then some strange part of the Forestry Act, no exploration or mining within the forested areas. Now, when one looks at the Barberton area, extensive plantations of wattle and pine trees, exotic species. Why the exclusion of exploration and mining from these areas when they're a pretty common tree over large tracts of the country? Comment regulatory overkill again. I have put together a list of references that I've used. There's extensive documentation in Ward's publication and the mineral deposits volumes that the GSSA published in '86. And I found various other reports, the Golani Technical Report for Galaxy Gold and various other excursion guidebooks, etc., that I have acquired over the years. And as I finish off here, I think tribute must be paid to the late Ian Ward, also of Council for Geoscience, Memoir 86, the metallurgy of the Barberton Greenstone Belt, South Africa and Swaziland. He provides an excellent overview of the overall geology, as well as improves the understanding of the metallogenesis of gold and other metals and minerals. And given the antics of the CGS at the moment, this is an exceptional document which shows what the CGS should be doing, providing data information to promote exploration companies to facilitate exploration. Right, that concludes my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. Guys, you can put on your videos and your mics again. And just to kick off the question, yeah, Graham from Jean Simonis is, do you know what caused the pillar collapse at Lily?
Well, again, what I've heard through the sort of, how do you call it, not really gossip, informed sources said it was progressive chipping away mining of the crown pillar at one point by Zommers. I think Barberton has as much of a problem with Zommers as the Free State Goldfields and all the other gold mines that are still in production.
Got a question for Graham?
No, I wanted to comment on Lily mine. I actually looked at the investigation, What happened was the original crown pillar was extremely thin. It was less than 20 meters thick, and that was by design, but it was on the thin side. And then over the years, the company had robbed the pillars directly below it until a pillar collapse occurred. Now the ore body dips at about 40 degrees, as far as I remember. So what happened is that as the fall occurred, it was falling down into the depths of the mine, which led to that glory hole or sinkhole that was there. So it was a bit more than Zama-Zamas. It was to do with officially sanctioned pillar robbing by the mine itself, and the original design, which was on the marginal side.
You make a very interesting point there, John. I did spend a couple of months working there, and it was a very strange operation. There was always, my recollection is there was always a shortage or an inability to produce what they needed to produce every day. And there was the excavations of the mine area got bigger and bigger in the one area, just literally so they could get ore out the mine and get it up to the gold plant.
Yeah, I think there was definitely some, I won't say negligence, but lack of oversight of the geotechnical factors. The other obvious thing to do with the tragedy is you're not supposed to really, it's legally not correct to have structures directly over a crown pillar like that. So that lamp house should never have been where it was.
Okay. Yeah, good point again, yeah.
Anybody else with questions? I've got one. Sorry, Adrian, come.
Yeah, any more a comment for Graham? I was involved with Rand Mines at the time of Barbrook. I wasn't part of the team that put it together, thank goodness. And you're right that those comments why it went wrong. It certainly wasn't a case of not knowing about refractory ore because there was a roaster there. The fact the roaster didn't work too well was another thing. But I'm afraid I have to blame in the end the geologists who did the resource estimate and from there produced a mineable reserve, because they felt that it was they felt they could model it as a stratiform deposit rather than a strata-bound deposit. So what they did in effect was to put a drive down along the shear zones, and the drive might be 3 meters wide. The shear zone might actually be 5 meters wide. And they would select out of that, out of a channel cut at the top for sampling, they would select out of there the high grade elements of that sample channel. And management had told them they wanted a 6-7 gram a ton ore body. So they took out an area in over that 3-4 meters where they had 6 grams a ton plus, and they said, right, that's our pay zone. And they carried on doing that all the way down the drive. And then they did the same on the drive on top. And they said, okay, these things are going to connect. So there's a full shrinkage slope that goes from this high grade to that high grade. But shear zone, particularly in banded iron formation and schists, it doesn't do that. It doesn't follow a straight line of the stoping. So what would happen as soon as they took the first blast, instead of the grade being in the 1.5 to 2 meters that they're defined as having 6 grams a ton plus, it was in the 2 meters to the side, in the sidewall. So they could never achieve the sort of grades that they expected. Then I'd also make the comment, you say it was overcapitalized, and I can remember when we were trying to sell it to Anglo-Val, I'm not sure whether you were part of the due diligence team, but the guys came along there and they said, okay, you've designed this mine to produce 25,000 tons a month. That's probably double what there is in any of the other mines in the Barberton Mountain land. What was the basis for that? And the basis was economies of scale and so on. The guys went into the plant and they came back to us and said, why have you got so much space next to your mills and your crushers? And the answer was, because we wanted to ramp up to 50,000 tons a month, at which stage the Anglo-Val guys sort of looked like we were all crazy. which, yeah, might be part of it. But I would make the point at the end of the day that the only way to make that really profitable was to mine it at a much higher rate at 3 grams a ton, or even less than that, and forget about your 7 gram a ton stuff, because you can't follow it. It's not one of those kind of things. Our chief consulting geologist, after he went down and realized the mistake, said it's a bit like currents in a bun. You know, you can't, there isn't a straight line you can follow to get the currents. You've got to take everything and bring the currents out with it. But anyway, great talk. And you know, you're absolutely right. The potential of that greenstone belt is only slightly scratched, but it requires a lot of money and a lot of data, which, as you say, we have or is available to put something together. And, you know, locally, we're unlikely to raise that money, and internationally, there's obviously issues with raising money. But thanks, great talk.
No, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, your points there are very, very valid. I just noticed there's a question here from Xavier Middleton. Do you think a balance can be achieved between current environmental legislation and the definite economic need for exploration and mining, or do you think it's just become a bureaucratic exercise? Yes, I think it is a bureaucratic exercise. I think it's serious overkill from my experiences with a Barberton company trying to get going, and what I see published in the local newspapers here in Welkom. The whole exercise is too much bureaucracy. There's too many forms. I think there are aspects of the NEMA that I think are just way over the top. But I think it increases the costs of getting exploration going in this country. And I think at some point, hopefully, there could be a reassessment of that. But I think it is an off-putting factor in many instances.
Graham, you raised in my mind a very new point, not new, but I mean, I don't live up there. I just see that there's this conflict between forestry and mining that I wasn't aware of. Now, shouldn't we be mobilizing or getting the greenies to start lobbying, you know, and actually let it pay for itself, deforest that area or replant it, and as you clean it off and put local vegetation in there, then you actually open the area up for exploration.
Yeah, it's a valid point. You know, colleague of mine actually described those areas as a green desert. There are lots of trees, but when you go in there, there's absolutely no bird life. And okay, I suppose if you spend enough time there, you would see there no buck or anything like that. Apparently, these trees do have a major degradation, cause a major degradation of the soil. And, you know, as I say, there must be many hundreds of thousands of hectares planted with or oversaturated with pine and wattle trees, literally from the Eastern Cape all the way up through Natal into Mpumalanga, into Northern Province or Limpopo. So the rationale there completely mystifies me. It's not as if they are a local tree, you know, an indigenous forest. As I say, the logic I cannot understand. What maybe there was motives there as well. Who knows?
Look, Mondi and the paper industry, you know, have a big stake in it, and even the mines in terms of the eucalyptus that they plant. But I think, you know, I don't know if enough people are aware of this. This should be as I say, we need to get the greenies to start lobbying, and actually then they can work in conjunction with us. This is just what I'm, you know, from the first year that I hear from your side.
Yeah. No, I agree with you here. Yeah. Maybe it must be raised within the greater concern geology.
You know, and actually show, because down here at the coast here, we are struggling to get all the aliens eradicated that's taking in. And one takes you can take very much the same attitude over there, make them aware of the fact that they are actually nurturing alien vegetation, and let them start replacing it, and then help the mining sector at the same time. Do you think there's enough of those areas that would be mineable?
Yeah, well, in the Barbrook area, when one moves up into the mountains sort of east of that Barbrook mining complex, there's extensive forestation. I went up there during my stint with Eastern Goldfields, and we looked at some of the surface up there. It's completely covered with this exotic vegetation, the wattle and the pine trees.
Thank you very, very much, Graham. And guys, thank you very much for attending, and have a great
Same here.
day.